Hello everybody, it's Jerry Rasco and I am back again with you today. We are going to be looking at the Avengers today, specifically issue number 2. So if you are new to the channel, new to this series, this is where we go back and look at these classic old Marvel comics, starting with issues number 1 of the series of the characters and going through them one by one and reviewing the artwork that brings these stories to life. The Avengers is our newest series so far, and it's kind of unique in that we started out with issue number 1, which makes total sense, but there was a thing called an issue 1.5, so basically 1.5. So in 1999, they did a retro issue that filled in the gap between what happened between when the Avengers were formed in issue number 1 and then issue number 2. And it was a fun series. It was a real fun way to look at a modern comic, but with a classic spin on it. So I thought that was a lot of fun. And now we're back to the original numbering. So now we're going to go back and look at issue number 2, even though this is our 3rd episode of the series. So very excited to get into that and get into some Avengers lore with you. I do, of course, want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button. What do you get when you subscribe? You're clicking a button. It helps me out, but it also gets you registered to win free art. I have a piece of original art that I've created for each of the series that we're doing, as well as 2 future upcoming ones, and random subscribers are going to be drawn when we get to the 1,000 subscriber mark, and they will win a piece of this artwork for free. No purchase necessary. You don't even need to worry about shipping. I will ship this to you for free, but that's what you get for being a subscriber. So real quick, we have the Avengers, which we're going to talk about today. We have Spider-Man. That's the first series that we did on the channel, and the oldest one. So there's a big playlist there if you want to go back and check that out. We have the X-Men, the original X-Men lineup in their original uniforms. Captain America, once we do get to the point here very quickly when Captain America makes his debut in the Avengers, we'll then go through and start doing his solo series. So we've got Captain America there. We have the Fantastic Four. We're going to start with issue number 1 there. And we have the Hulk as well. So all of those pieces of artwork are available to you by hitting that subscribe button. So go ahead, click it. Become a subscriber to the channel. Think about notifications too, and then that way you know every week when one of these videos comes out. That all said, thank you all so much. We're at 400 or a little over 400 subscribers as of the recording of this video. That's all due to you, so thank you all so much. That said, let's cut over to the comic. Let's check this one out. So this is the cover to Avengers number 2. It's interesting cover. It is a little bit of a stiff composition. So what I mean by composition is the arrangement of the elements within the drawing to make it a overall comprehensive unit or comprehensive piece. And what I've got here is there's interesting stuff. You've got to include all the figures. So you've got your Iron Man, Giant Man now. Ant-Man has become Giant Man and is predominantly Giant Man. Thor and the Wasp, and then the Hulk is being replaced by this guy called the Space Phantom. That is the villain of today. So we see the Space Phantom inside the shape of the Hulk. So we've got all of our characters there. When I say it's stiff, what I mean is like Thor's pose is okay. He's whirling his hammer. He's got one hand and a fist. But there's not much twist to the body. The body is very forward, very centered. Same with Giant Man. He's kind of reaching back. I don't know why he'd be reaching back, but he is. And again, his one leg is forward, but his overall torso, the twisting of the body is very stiff. Even Iron Man is kind of turned sideways, but not really overly action pose. Everybody seems to kind of be pausing for a second as opposed to in action. Even the Space Phantom himself in the form of the Hulk as well is kind of stiff. We're looking slightly down at everybody to get an overall picture. I think you could have done something where maybe a different angle. There's a number of different compositions that we could have gone with. Obviously, this is the one we got. I will say, important thing to note, when you're putting your characters together. And if you're a self-publisher, creator of your own comics like I am, you have to think about color if it's going to be in color. So here, obviously, they made a commitment to making the background yellow. It's supposed to be essentially a neutral, so that your title is going to pop off, all of your copy is going to pop off, and the characters' costumes are going to be pushed forward from the background. So obviously, you have Giant Man in red and blue, Thor in primarily red and blue, but we notice the yellow is separated from this bright background. And then important, you have Iron Man down low. If you swapped Iron Man and Thor, the cover's not going to work as well because Iron Man is going to blend into that yellow background. So again, very important to think about how your colors balance and how they play off of each other. You don't want to necessarily put a character wearing a brown suit in front of a brown building. Again, stuff like that just kind of blends. So it's important that you're thinking color while you're making your designs, because that can help direct where your characters are going to go. As I always tell everybody at this point, this is a scanned PDF copy of this comic. So back in 2006, Marvel Comics got a hold of individual copies of these original books, put them on a flatbed scanner, scan them, and then put them onto DVD discs so that you could review them like we are now at our computer. It's a great opportunity for us to see the original comic as it was made. We get to zoom in, we get to highlight things, but we're still seeing all of the comic exactly the way it was. Page turns are correct, there's no computer recoloring, even the ads are there. So it really gives us a sense of sort of being in a time machine and seeing this comic from when it came out back in 1963. So this is a very early Marvel comic. Talk about the creative team. We have Stan Lee writing, we have Jack Kirby drawing it, and we have Paul Reinman inking. Paul Reinman, not my favorite Jack Kirby inker. We've seen him on other series working over Jack, and it's okay. I think it's an interesting organic ink line. I'll put it that way. And what I mean by organic ink line is some people will ink very rigidly. You're using a lot of templates, a lot of rulers. Overall, this has a very, again, organic feel. The lines are fluid. Example, this Hulk here on the splash page, there's not a single straight line on the figure. So everything is done by hand, and it's done fairly well. It's just thin. And what I mean by thin is you do have a little bit of heavy contouring. So, but it doesn't seem to follow any logic for me. What I mean is usually your line work, when you're inking, you want to use thicker lines to indicate darker areas. So for example, this leg on the outside of the leg of the Hulk is thicker. That would indicate that this is a darker part and that maybe the light is coming from across. However, here's my problem. There's no shadows. There's very few shadows other than what's this stylized shading on Iron Man to try to make him look shiny. But like there's no shadows. There's a thick line, but there's no shadow under the neck. There's no shadow on this side of the torso where he would sort of be casting a shadow against his own body. The inside of the leg, behind here on the other side of the arm, the body would be casting a shadow across if the light is coming from the right side of the page to the left. So there's just no rhyme or reason to the line weight. You have this heavy line here, then you also have a heavy line here. It just feels more like, to be kind, I'll say a slight error in the inking technique where, whoops, I made that line too thick, and so now I'll try to balance it with lighter on the other side. It doesn't seem to have a rhyme or reason. This shoulder musculature doesn't work in the Hulk. There isn't so the way your shoulder connects, it sort of connects into like a teardrop shape above, and the bicep connects sort of underneath it. And this is showing like there's some sort of muscle in between the middle here, which doesn't really exist that way. The hatch marks on the chest is sort of haphazard. And then I'm going to just point this out. The Hulk only has 3 toes. So I've seen sometimes the Hulk drawn with 4 toes. I don't know that I've ever seen 3 before. And so, again, this is very early. Simple error. However, part of my concern here is Jack Kirby's the inker, or I'm sorry, the penciler, the artist for both this series, the Hulk. He's drawing all the characters in this series in their individual series. And so for him to make a mistake like not remembering how many toes the Hulk has, I get it. It maybe if it's the Thing, but the Hulk is, to my knowledge, is always kind of just a normal human, but green and big. But number of fingers, toes, etc., should all be standard. Thor's drawn pretty well, very casual, and then Iron Man standing there very stiffly is funny. So this is an early Avengers. So they've just formed as the Avengers in the previous issue, and now they're having a meeting, and they're waiting. Ant-Man and the Wasp arrive, and they use their pills to grow. So they have pills to shrink and pills to grow that come from their belt. Later, it becomes a gas. So it goes from taking pills to it's a gas that's incorporated into their costume that they can just sort of trigger and grow and shrink as needed. Eventually, the Wasp doesn't even need the gas. It just becomes part of her being, and she can transform size at will. But this is an early concept where it's a pill. So theoretically, anybody could become Giant Man. Anybody could become Ant-Man, etc. And again, this is where I'm talking about when I say thin. So when you look at this face of Giant Man explaining, hey, we're all teammates now. I'll let you guys know we have these special pills that do it. This is super thin. There's very little shadow, but I will say this, at least this line thickness is consistent. This underneath the chin is dark, which means this is backside of this arm would be shadowed. We see it here on this side of the arm, which is good. And so you're starting to see at least there with the contour lines, the outlines of the figure, using line weight to show shadow. I'd like to see more shadows though. Otherwise, again, like I said, it just feels very thin to me. The Hulk is crabby, and there's a very nice ongoing rivalry with him and Thor. And I think that's a lot of fun, to be honest, and fits into this nature. This is not the savage Hulk where he talks in third person and is incredibly dumb and naive. This is a Hulk that is more savvy, more, I'll say, street smart. What I mean is, we think of he's really tying into the Jekyll and Hyde aspect, where in the story of Jekyll and Hyde, Hyde is not dumb. He's crafty, but he doesn't have the same book intellect or educational intellect that Dr. Jekyll has. That's the same here with the Hulk and Bruce Banner. I do find it interesting that at no point does he even is there even a mention of him changing back. Like, he's, in this story, he's just the Hulk, apparently, as long as he wants to be the Hulk. So now we change, and I would prefer a page turn where you're actually flipping the page like this to change scenes, but at least we're changing from page to page. So that's okay. And we see this device or this ship or whatever coming to Earth, and it changes from this silvery egg shape into looking like a meteor, but it's under control and it can land, and then it becomes the Space Phantom. So this is where I'm like, wait, is the Space Phantom is a shapeshifter? Which is what it kind of appears like at the beginning, but changes by the time we get to the end of the story, and you'll see here shortly. So, but I like the design is kind of funky and cool. I like the wings under his arms, these sort of translucent pinky purple wings, and then the webbed hands is neat. He's got this very unique face where it's very, very long, and the big buggy eyes. Very cool design, and it does kind of work. I like him crouched here trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this alley and get to the Avengers. That's the whole point. He wants to to defeat the Avengers so that his people, his alien race, can invade the Earth. So now we find out what else the Space Phantom can do, which is he can change into any person, and when he does, that person is shipped off to what he calls a limbo, which is just this faceless, nameless, silent world where the person exists, but to them, it's essentially instantaneous between the time they disappear and the time they reappear. So when he takes their form, the person he replicates goes and is pushed off to limbo, and then that way you never have to worry about having two of the same people in the same place at the same time and ruining his disguise. So here, again, it almost looks like shape-shifting. He takes the form, like his body seems to change into the form of this other guy, and then he kind of points his hand, there's this golden ball, and off you go. That's what happens over here to the Hulk, too. This is a nice down shot of the team. They see this camera stream pop up on their meeting table. So that's a cool technology. I mean, it's kind of what we have today, right? You could do something like that if your table was essentially also a giant LCD screen. You could display things like that on it. So very ahead of its time. The Hulk face here is great. I do want to point that out throughout the issue. I have a lot of qualms when people get the Hulk wrong. And so being drawn with a very heavy brow, pug nose, long upper lip, and very wide jaw and kind of flatter head. That's what I'm looking for from this early Hulk. And this is right on model. So I think this part is great. Again, just sort of what I was talking about with the thin inking. Let me point this out here in this panel down at the bottom left as we zoom in. So Giant Man is here. Because he wears red, the Wasp wears the same color red, you almost lose the fact that that's his face. It blends in because there is not a thicker, heavier line to differentiate between him and between the folds and curves of the Wasp. Maybe you think it's part of the chair or something to that nature. So it's just kind of odd. Same thing at the top of Iron Man. These contour lines around Iron Man are very thin. I'd like to see some where if this chest plate pops out, maybe have some shadow underneath it, thicker lines under the arms. We have it over here on the Hulk. I want to see the same thing on all the figures. So that's what I mean when I say thin. There's not a lot of variation in the line weight sometimes. The Hulk goes to lead because he's that kind of guy. I saw this and I thought this was a little strange. So again, there's a very thick border around the Hulk, which is fine. Same thing here with Iron Man. Little bit on the Wasp, could be a little thicker because she's so far in the foreground, but that's okay. The Hulk has these really thick contour lines. It's inked that way, but this fist that's opening the door is very thin. And again, I don't understand why the inconsistencies in the inking. And of course, as we all suspected, the Space Phantom replaces the Hulk with himself and sends the Hulk off to limbo. Let's see here. So it's fine. So now he's going to use the Hulk and the distrust that the team has of the Hulk to try to break the Avengers apart, get them to fight amongst themselves, and then that way they're doing most of the work for him. He gets right into an argument with Iron Man, who's trying to prove himself. This profile shot of the Hulk is great. Everybody seems to get the profile right. The big, heavy eyebrow, pug nose, sticking his jaw out, I think is really good. They start to come to blows. Could be some really good action here to start with. The Hulk is ready to, throw down and fight, and Thor gets in the way. Again, from an art perspective, everything is okay. One of the things I will say, there are some great backgrounds, and this is something that I find problematic in a lot of modern comics as well, people don't like drawing backgrounds. It's not fun. It's boring. It's a lot of rules and rulers and templates and things to get it right so that things are perspective is correct and stuff like that. It's not nearly as fun as drawing the Thor and Hulk fighting, for example, right? Obviously. So what you can do in comics is once you establish a background like we have here, you can then go and sort of have a couple of panels without a background. As long as the characters aren't changing locations, it's fine. And then you can kind of dip back in when you have maybe a wider angle, a larger panel. You can fill in some of those background details. Throughout this whole page, there's essentially no background. The only reason we have anything here at all is they want to show Iron Man punching the wall as the Hulk dodges his blow. I should say the Space Phantom. So we have just the smallest bit to indicate that there's a wall there. Otherwise, they're just sort of floating in space, which I do not care for. Even especially maybe in this wide panel, it would have been good to put in some walls, some flooring, etc. That would help. In a close-up like this where the two are arguing face to face, that's a perfect place to not have background. But if you're going to have a wide shot where you see everybody from head to toe, put some background in there. Even if it's the minimum of just lines to indicate floor, wall, ceiling, that at least, again, puts them in a real space. So again, we've had nothing, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels of just empty space. And now when the Hulk goes to leave, he's smashing through walls. And again, it's the Space Phantom as the Hulk. He's smashing through walls. I like that pose. I like the rubble as he's just sort of putting his arms out and walking through the walls. I think that's pretty cool. The thing I don't like is all of a sudden we go from no sense of space. Where are they? Are they still in that room? Where's the door? Where is it in relation to all of a sudden the Hulk just running through stuff, which is kind of weird. I do want to point this out as well. I did some research to make sure. Let me cut back to me for just a second. So the Space Phantom. I was aware of the Space Phantom and the idea that he can change he can become anybody and take their place. What I wasn't sure, I was like, how is he as strong as the Hulk? And so I turned to my ultimate guide that I have here, the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, the deluxe edition, the omnibus, which has everybody A to Z. And I was like, you know what? I am going to look up the Space Phantom and see what it says. So that's exactly what I did here. And I'm trying to get to that page real quick so I can read verbatim. I should have tagged it with a sticky note. But here we go. So the Space Phantom, this is definitely his first appearance is here. His origin was explained in Thor 281. But powers, what it says here is not only, let's see, this, where is it? By adopting the form of a superhumanly strong being, the Space Phantom gains as much superhuman strength as that being possesses, but only as long as the Phantom retains that particular form. So he is able to possess the power to he possesses the power to assume the appearance and powers of virtually any single mortal being. The nature of his power is unknown, but is presumably non-magical. At the point that he assumes the being's likeness, the model that he's copying is automatically shunted to limbo until such time as the Phantom assumes his own form or that of someone else. So there we go. So that is how, in this case, when he transforms into the Hulk, it's not a fake Hulk without the Hulk's powers. He truly becomes the Hulk. So he can do everything the Hulk does, like rip up this entire sidewalk. And I think that's really neat little, oops, sorry, back to the screen. So like ripping up the sidewalk here. And I think that's a cool panel where you can see the piping and all the stuff that goes underneath the street there. I think that's a very nice touch. And it's a very Kirby-esque bit of destruction. His rubble, when things get broken, always tends to be very angular, and again, just seems it's very iconically Jack Kirby. But who should show up at the wrong time but Rick Jones, who does know the Hulk and is like, "Hey, let's get you back to the lab, buddy." Thinking, I'll get you to change back to Banner and things will calm down a little bit. However, we have a little bit of a writing continuity error. Rick Jones tells him like, "Hey, what? You know me. I'm Rick Jones. You save me. I'm the guy who looks after you. I make sure you're able to turn back to Dr. Don Blake." Whoops. The Hulk doesn't turn into Don Blake. Dr. Don Blake is the alter ego of Thor. That's who Thor changes into. Here, he turns into Dr. Bruce Banner. So just an error, and I will say I've seen this a lot. I've seen this in interviews. I've seen people point it out. Stan Lee had a very notoriously bad, I guess, memory when it came to names. It's one of the reasons he liked alliteration, because it helped him to remember from issue to issue. He also was dealing with a lot of books. He was writing everything. So very easy to get confused and just include the wrong name. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I believe in the first issue of the Hulk, you can go back and look in the playlist and see our review there. I believe he's listed as David, possibly. Or no, he's I think he might be Robert or Bob. And then he becomes Bruce. So there's this very David Banner is the name from the TV show from the 70s. But I believe he's called Robert or Bob. And so it's sort of retcon that his name is Robert Bruce Banner. And so his middle name is Bruce, but he goes by Bruce a lot, I guess. That's how they fix that. But that's just, honestly, that's just Stan Lee forgetting from moment to moment. Did I call him Bob? Did I call him Bruce? I knew it was a B name. And eventually, right, people start paying attention and it sticks. But yeah, that seems to me like a classic Stan whoopsie. So Rick he's like, "Come on, let's go." And the Hulk jumps away. Again, the Space Phantom. But he's not going in the right direction, and Rick is getting nervous. This panel right here is excellent. Rick hanging on, the Hulk jumping away. Great angle to turn it on its side so that he's jumping, forward from left to right. The pose is really good. The musculature is surprisingly good, where so when you have your arm and you stretch your arm out like that, you can feel it. Your pectoral muscle here connects up with into your shoulder here. So when he's doing that, that is exactly how that should look. The corner of this line comes over and connects to where the shoulder connects to the bicep. So nice bit of anatomy there, works out. And I even like this, where he lands flinging Rick off of him because he's going to get rid of this kid and tell him what's going on. So I like the thickness of the Hulk. I like the bulkiness of the body is great. The shadows are good. And the size comparison of Hulk to Rick, I think, is really, really nice here. So that's good. And we cut to the next page, and this is exactly it. In the form of the Hulk, the Space Phantom begins to explain, and we see, he turns back into himself. And just like we said, when he turns into himself, the Hulk appears. So that's how that works. But the Hulk has no memory. It happens instantaneously. And so it goes from 1 minute he's in the Avengers mansion, the next minute he's out in a field somewhere being like, what's going on? And then the Phantom changes right back and the Hulk disappears again. But you notice that it's different. So in this case, the Phantom is not changing his shape first and then kind of casting the person into limbo. He is just beginning to take that shape, and you see it form around him. This is a really nice effect for the technology at the time. With today's Photoshop, we could do transparent layers, and you could kind of see one figure through the other would be really cool. But this is what we have available to us in 1963. But I like it. I like the figure sort of forming around the Phantom while the other figure just sort of bloop, blips out. And that's really good. He leaps off, and nice twisting of the figure to show the action, pushing off. That twist of the arm is really good. Rick's left all alone. Again, slight tilt of the panel. We call that a Dutch angle. When you tilt in the direction of the angle or the action, it adds speed and energy to that motion. So that's exactly what's happening there. I do want to point this out. The Hulk now has 4 toes. So we went from 3 toes. Now the Hulk has 4 toes and seems to continue to have 4 toes through the rest of the issue. Okay, but this is Space Phantom Hulk, so maybe you could explain that. Maybe you say, well, that's the difference, right? He made a mistake and somehow the Hulk is only supposed to have 3 toes. I don't know. Taken off, and then along the way he sees at Stark Labs there is a big weapons test, and so he steals the weapon again to try to anger people towards the Hulk and get the rest of the Avengers to react negatively and fight him. Of course, we know that Tony Stark is Iron Man. He gets the call of what happened, and off he goes. I think it's kind of interesting that Iron Man flies standing straight up. We're used to, certainly in the movies and things, you see Iron Man and he has his hands down and his rockets come from his feet and he flies the way we think of a plane or, even a bird, anything head first, propulsion behind, pushing him through the air. Well, here, the jets are sort of hovering him with his feet, and I don't know and then he angles, and so he sort of flies straight up and down, which I think is kind of funny. His sensors are able to find the Hulk, and now he's going to engage, and they are going to fight it out. So we cut to this next page, which is interesting. So the Hulk now has 4 fingers. So we've gone from 3 toes and 5 fingers to 4 toes and 4 fingers. But then when we cut back over here, there are 5 fingers. Listen, folks, one of the things you need to do, and I have been drawing comic books, obviously not professionally, but I made my first comic book of my own when I was. I'll point this out. Iron Man also only has 4 fingers. But I made my own comic book that I drew myself when I was 13. So it's been a very long time. It's been decades. Even to this day, when I draw a hand, I will count fingers. As I'm drawing, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the thumb. Or, so I know, try to make sure I never put too many or too few fingers on a hand. It's a very simple thing, but it is important, and don't forget about it. So yeah. He uses electricity to try to, distract the Hulk, and even Iron Man says, like, that shouldn't be that big a deal. But to the Space Phantom, who's not actually the Hulk, who's not used to this kind of stuff, it scares him and he takes off. And this shows not only is he able to form into people, he's also able to form into animals, because he takes the form of a bug, and we find out it's a wasp, ironically. And now, boom, the Hulk comes back. But it happens in an instant, so Iron Man still thinks the Hulk is the enemy, and he's going to take the fight to him with this sort of hammer attachment that he puts onto his armored arm. I do have a question about this. And it's all here in these 2 pages. So his arm sort of transforms into a tube, which, okay, I can get that. And then he pulls out from his, basically his stomach area. I'm pointing to my stomach because he pulls out this, hammer attachment that he adds to the end of this so he can start using his arm as a big hammer to attack for more force. Here's my problem with this. Tony Stark wears the Iron Man suit, basically, the chest and the trunks all the time. And you can see he's plugging it into a wall socket. It powers because the lore is the device is keeping shrapnel from entering his heart and killing him. So he has to wear it all the time to stay alive. So he's made it as super thin as possible so that he can wear it under regular clothes. That's how Tony Stark gets around. He can wear a suit over the top of this. Nobody sees it. If that's the case and it's skin tight, where is this hole? Where are things stored if it's flat against his body? That part I don't understand. Maybe this is an under suit and then he adds another sort of top part over the top of it, but it doesn't seem that way. It really does appear like he just adds the arms and legs, attaches them to the suit, and off he goes. So I start to question, where is this compartment in his stomach when the thing is flush to his body? Rick Jones, who has learned what's going on, tries to use his radio network that he's put together called the Teen Brigade. That was something that comes from the Hulk episodes. And he's trying to call Giant Man for help. He's got to let the rest of the Avengers know, which is exactly what he does. So he lets Giant Man and Wasp know. They use their pills to, in this case, instead of being Ant-Man, he's going to Giant Man. Wasp is always Wasp. And they're going to go figure out what's going on. So now at least some of the Avengers are aware of what's happening. This panel, so it doesn't make sense. So Giant Man is Giant Man, and he's moving faster, presumably faster than the Wasp can catch up. So he's holding her hand as a giant. Why wouldn't you just go put her in your palm, hold it loose, carry her, or have her ride on your shoulder or something to that effect? I mean, I do like the giant hand. I think that's drawn very well. From a story perspective, I don't get it. I really like the energy of the Hulk and Iron Man fighting as well. That's a great swing of that giant hammer arm, Hulk kind of flipping over. That's really, really good stuff. And then Giant Man steps in and kind of breaks them apart, which I like that. Again, the energy, the figures, everything is really nice there. Big, wide panel. I like just putting his giant hand on the top of the Hulk's head, grabbing Iron Man's arm. Like, hey, you guys don't understand. You got to stop. However, he doesn't explain exactly what's happening, which he absolutely should. But of course, that's not what's going to happen. We still have a little bit of confusion that needs to happen here. The Space Phantom in the body of a Wasp decides to try to fight the actual Wasp herself. But if you know anything about Giant Man / Ant-Man and the Wasp, they use these radio waves to communicate with not only the ants, bees, wasps, etc., but with each other. And Ant-Man used to have a big helmet. The helmet circuitry and stuff you can see has been miniaturized and put inside of the cowl of Giant Man. And I liked this little cutaway diagram they had of going, hey, yes, we told you before he needs his helmet. He still has those antennae because it's all been miniaturized inside. So that's kind of cool. I always like that explanation of the tech stuff whenever you can get it. I think it's kind of neat. And they follow the Wasp's signals to where they see, aha, she's okay, but the Space Phantom is back, and now he's going to replicate Giant Man. However, now people saw it. The Wasp saw it. Hulk saw the transformation. They kind of are starting to figure out what's going on. Nice punching pose where he's crouching down like that to punch the ground. I like that. And then this sort of wrestling action of the Hulk getting down low and grabbing him by the waist, lifting him off the air. That's good stuff there too. All really well drawn. The only thing I would point out that to be very careful of is your figures being on the panel border. I talk about it a lot. Here in these bottom 3 panels, no problem. You can see there's a little space here between the Hulk and Giant Man from the bottom panel. So they are set in space, which is great. And a good cast shadow as well. I really like that. This part is all good. Here, his back foot is sort of resting on that panel border. And then definitely the Space Phantom feels like he's standing on it here. You don't want that. It breaks up the illusion of 3-dimensional space. It puts that figure that's on the same physical layer as the border kind of up front, as opposed to maybe you want them set back, like the panel borders are a frame that we're looking through and watching what's happening. So that's something to watch out for, and just kind of a general no-no. Don't have your figures resting on the panel borders. This is a nice action sequence here too. I like this one, the throw. So the Hulk throwing Giant Man towards us. Good perspective. Even though Giant Man obviously is bigger, as he's coming closer, he's going to be even larger. The Hulk's smaller, but that's a very nice action panel right there. And then Giant Man / Space Phantom using the elements around him, this, whatever this is, a moon vehicle, a moon dozer or moon tractor, I think they call it, to try to run the Hulk down. And he uses his extremely strong legs with 4 toes. So now this is the real Hulk with 4 toes, to shove it back away at extremely high speeds. And this is great. I think this is a cool way of Giant Man ducking out of the way, grabbing the roof to pull himself out of the way. Iron Man can't. At first read, and I think I've told you guys this in other videos, I read these comics at minimum 3 times before I come in and record. And I still find stuff that's new, or I change my mind partway through. But at first reading, this thought balloon of Iron Man's, I thought should have been spoken out loud. What I mean is, my moon vehicle, Giant Man, what's going on? Because he's not asking questions of my moon vehicle and Giant Man. I thought he was going to yell, my moon vehicle, Giant, and he's yelling at Giant Man. What's going on? Because he doesn't know that this is not the real Giant Man. So I thought this should be spoken out loud. The more I look at it, maybe it should be a thought balloon. For one, nobody, including the other Avengers, know that Iron Man is also Tony Stark. So if he says this is his moon vehicle, somebody might question it. So maybe this is just him observing and going, wait, what? There's one thing, 2 thing, what is going on? The more I read it, the more I'm like, okay, I don't have a problem with it being a thought balloon. But at first reading, I was like, oh, I think that's an error. But I don't. Now I think differently. So there you go. You read it enough times, you'll circle back around. We have a pinup here of a preview of the next issue, which is pretty cool. It's going to feature the Submariner. Ironically, Submariner has been popping up a lot in all of my reviews, and they're all at different times and happening at different years and stuff like that. But we're seeing Submariner in books like X-Men. We're seeing Submariner in the Hulk. We're seeing Submariner in the Avengers. So it's very interesting that they're really making a push to include him in this greater Marvel universe. It's a good pose. One of the things I like about the Submariner, when he's drawn well, is there's a real emphasis on the angularity of his face. He has a unique face in that it's almost triangular in its shape, as opposed to your more traditional egg or sort of more broad chin. Maybe to help emphasize that sometimes he's looked at as a villain. And then he has these very dramatic, long, curving eyebrows. And again, these are features that, for me, are very important when I see Submariner that differentiate him from just anybody else with dark hair. So these are done very well. I think this is a really good image of Submariner in this pinup. So that'll be fun. So we know what we have to look forward to for the next issue. Iron Man gets bowled down by the tractor thing, and Space Phantom decides time to take Iron Man's likeness. And I like how Iron Man is essentially getting sucked into sort of this little portal. I think that works really well. It feels like he's being sucked away. Giant Man returns. Everybody knows what's going on now. Now it's just a question of, can you stop him? So really what this is in a way, it's almost fan fiction. What I mean by that is, I guarantee you, right after Avengers #1, your fandom is looking at that going, ooh, they're all on a team. Well, what if Thor has to fight the Hulk? Who'd win? What if Giant Man has to fight Iron Man? Who'd win? What would the Avengers do if they had to fight each other? Who's going to beat who, and that kind of stuff? And that's what you've got here, right? Without them actually fighting each other truly, you have a way to have them fight each other. But overall, pretty good. The Wasp knows that if she needs Thor, she's got to go see, now we see Dr. Blake. And so, identified correctly as Dr. Don Blake, she sends the message, hey, we got a problem. He transforms into Thor, and they fly off. I like the flying poses for both of them. The hammer coming at us is very good. The foreshortening on Thor and the arm and stuff is nice. Here's where it doesn't make sense, though, and that is with the background. And maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, but if that's the case, it essentially becomes an optical illusion. We are looking up at Thor, at the Wasp. That's the way that they are drawn. That's how that reads to me. Especially because we know that if they are both flying head first, then their torso is going to be facing down towards the ground. So we're looking up. The only way we could be looking down at them is if they are flying upside down, which is weird. And again, would be very different in the way that you would draw them. The background, so we're looking up at the figures. The backgrounds here we're looking down at. This over here is the roof of the building. And you can see this is the roof of the building. So somehow we're both looking up and down at the same time, and it's completely broken. The other piece is perspective. So perspective are the rules for how you draw something that goes away from you as it, or goes off into the distance as it gets further away from you. And so the way you do that, they're called vanishing points and perspective lines. So eventually all lines that are parallel to one another close to you will eventually reach a single point. That's called the vanishing point if they go far enough. Not that they actually come together, we just can't see them. They go beyond our sight, beyond the horizon. But as they get farther away, the thing gets smaller, so it looks like they come to a point. So all of your lines should go in the same direction to the same point if they are in line with each other. So what I mean is, if I have an object over here, these lines are going to go this way towards the vanishing point. These will go in the opposite, like this. If I have something here, it's going to go to the same vanishing point as the thing over here. The lines are going to merge together. Here, none of these buildings meet the same vanishing point. Everything is going in a weird, different direction. So the perspective is completely off. So just again, a weird thing. The figures are great. The background, not so much. We're looking up, but we're not looking up at the buildings. And that's the difference that needed to happen there. I found this very interesting from a story perspective as well. So I understand the Space Phantom is transforming into these other beings and taking on their abilities. Iron Man is just a guy in a technological suit. So how is the Space Phantom not only recreating the guy, but he's also recreating things like the circuits and the wires and all that? Why wouldn't the suit... So I come from... I didn't know a ton about the Space Phantom before reading this issue. I'm used to shapeshifters, characters like Skrulls, for example, who can turn into other people. They can't replicate the powers because they're organic. Take like Mystique, for example. When Mystique transforms into, let's say, Wolverine, she doesn't have adamantium in her skeleton. She doesn't have adamantium claws. They are part of her being that look like his claws, but they're flesh and blood. You could cut them, break them, whatever. They're not metal the way Wolverine's are. This seems to be different. He seems to replicate not only the person, but their accoutrement. So if you have armor, weapons, clothing, whatever, he's replicating that. Fortunately, because the Wasp can shrink down even further and disable some of this weaponry that he's using against the Hulk and Giant Man. And now Thor steps in. And while the Space Phantom does avoid the first hit with Thor's hammer by using his repulsor ray, Thor's not done. And this is a very nice pose. I like this crouching pose as he hits his hammer on the ground, and then uses it to control the weather. And he comes in with lightning and rain, which then rusts the Space Phantom again. So the Space Phantom appears not only when he's taking the form, it's not him. He's not a shapeshifter. So he's not transforming organically. He is actually forming iron around him, because otherwise he wouldn't rust. Now, iron doesn't rust this fast in real life, but this is magic rain. So we'll go with that, and we'll say that that's the key there. And so he rusts up solid. If this was an organic shell that is mimicking Iron Man, it wouldn't rust. But it has to be real iron. So that's kind of a weird choice in how that works. But the Space Phantom has seen his opportunity and is going to transform one more time. Real quick, I do want to talk about the inking here on the rain. Interesting. Rain can be hard. It's a lot easier today with Photoshop. You can just sort of tell the colorist, hey, I want it to rain, and they can add that over the top with white or other colors, white, blue, whatever they want to do, to indicate those raindrops coming down, hitting, splashing, etc. Here, we basically have, you've got black and white art with some color laid over the top of it. And so that's what they're going to do, is use the lines to indicate. There's a little too many lines on Iron Man for my taste. I'd like to see more of the rain as opposed to just sort of a lighting effect. Same with Thor. I don't know why all of a sudden the center of him is all these crazy lines, unless it's trying to show, I guess, the energy. But again, there's not that much rain in the background. I don't know why it would make him look that way. So a little too many lines on the shading. But again, I appreciate thumbs up for the attempt at doing a rainstorm, which is not easy. As I mentioned, Space Phantom wants to transform one more time, but this time he wants to transform into Thor, and he hits his limitation, which, according again to the handbook, says he can only assume the shape of other mortal beings. Thor, being the god of thunder, is not technically a mortal being in the way that we know it, and so the Space Phantom is sucked into limbo himself, almost like his powers bounce back against him. And Iron Man returns, and everybody's like, okay, that's what happened. But the Hulk's like, nah, you guys, when you thought it was me, you said mean things. You don't like me. I don't like you, and I don't need you. I'm out. So there we go. End of the Hulk. I do like this Hulk face here. I would like to see the teeth not colored green. But otherwise, I like the design. The heavy brow, the wide, flat head, pug nose. Really good Hulk face there. Good shading, good shadow as well. And as he jumps off, we're seeing, there we go, no more Hulk on the Avengers. And he jumps off with 4 toes. So there we go. He's grown a toe over the course of this issue. Good for him. Maybe he'll have 5 eventually. So that is the end of the comic. Let's head back to the desk and we'll wrap everything up. So that was Avengers number 2, a kind of wacky adventure. Like I said, basically to me feels like fan service, kind of saying like, hey, you've put together the most powerful heroes in the Marvel universe at the time. What if they had to fight each other? Who's going to win? What would you do if the Thor goes bad or the Hulk goes bad? And so I like it. I think it's very funny that the original lineup only lasted 1 issue basically before it didn't work. From a writing perspective, let me say this. It makes sense. What I mean by this is getting rid of the Hulk. The Hulk is not a traditional hero. The appeal of the Hulk is not that he is a traditional superhero that wants to do the right thing. And that's obviously what you've got with the Avengers. The other part is you have a real duplication of their powers. You have Giant Man, who is super strong. You have Iron Man, whose suit enables him to be super strong, plus all the other things. Thor is super strong, plus he can do other things. So having a guy that is also super strong doesn't work with the team dynamic. Most of your superhero teams work the best when your characters have a diverse power set that they can then use together. That's what makes the Fantastic Four so successful. That's what makes the X-Men so successful. And again, spoilers, we'll get here eventually in our X-Men series, but eventually there's a new team of X-Men. And if you're familiar with this, it's the all new X-Men. This is when you get Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, etc., Nightcrawler, they join the X-Men. There was a character called Thunderbird, and he was both super strong and he was supposed to be a super good tracker. Well, that was a duplication. You have Colossus, who is super strong. You have Wolverine, that is a tracker who can follow people by scent and stuff like that. So this guy was really superfluous. He was a character that really didn't need to be there. And so he got killed off and replaced with other characters that had unique powers that would interact and complement the rest of the team. That's what we will see here in the Avengers. We are not done adding members to the team. We'll see that very soon. But for right now, again, makes sense that the Hulk's not there. So there's my wrap up. Let's talk about a ranking real quick. It's fun. There's a lot of action in it. There's some good stuff. There's a little bit of funky things here and there that, you go, let's chalk it up to being 1963 and maybe people weren't scrutinizing it as much as we did today. I'll give it a nice solid 7. I think it's a solid issue. Fun, and again, a way where you get to see these characters fight, if you will, without really fighting. So always a good time. That's my review of the issue. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm very curious to see, did anybody read this? Is this something that you're familiar with? Is this your first time hearing about the Space Phantom in conjunction with the history of the Avengers? Let me know in the comments. I always want to hear from you. And again, remember, join me right back here, same time next week for more Avengers. Thanks.